It is 7 o'clock, and we are filling up this room. So welcome everybody to Books and Bars. My name is Jeff Kamen. If you've never done Books and Bars before, Lisa is going to be co-hosting tonight. You can see her on the screen right now. And basically what I ask is that you remain muted until I call on you. And I'll call on you if you raise your hand. And you can also use the chat to bring up questions or comments, and we will address those also. Lisa will be helping me check the chat to discuss those things. Tonight's book is Devolution or Devolution. It's funny because I don't say evolution. I definitely say evolution, but I feel like when it's devolution, it just sounds better than devolution. Now, I've heard it pronounced both ways. So, you know, potato, potato, devolution, devolution, however you want to call this book, with a much longer subtitle. And my icebreaker questions for tonight are, they're a bit leading, but you know, I mean, one of them definitely fits with this book here tonight. Do you think there ever was something like Sasquatch, or maybe still a Sasquatch type creature exists? Why or why not? Love to hear your thoughts on that. I think the book really lays out some interesting theories and some of the scientific thoughts on that. I'll just start a little bit on that. And I come from the school of Mulder, Fox Mulder on the X-Files of I want to believe. And you'll often hear me say these things at Books and Bars. I don't know if this is true, but I want to believe it. It'd be cool if it was. I know there isn't really, as far as I have read, any scientific evidence yet, really good hard evidence of Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever we call them. But along with all those names, one of the things we do have is that almost every continent, every group of people does have some sort of story of a creature like this in their lore. And why would that be? How is it so prevalent then? Or then why haven't we found them? You know, maybe it's we need to take a drone and do heat signatures over, parts of the Pacific Northwest. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just going to say I want to believe, but I don't know. I'd love to hear from anyone that does or doesn't and why. And that's just a little side thing. My other icebreaker is, things have really ramped up in the last few weeks. It's really exciting. Every time we're farther along, especially here in Minnesota, we're really doing well on our numbers for vaccinations. So I am really excited. Most of you hopefully have heard this already, but if you haven't, I'm happy to be the first to share it here, that we will be returning to in-person live Books and Bars events starting May 20th. And we are going to run a schedule of in-person live Books and Bars events at Local Roots, which is a really fun restaurant that serves local and sustainable food. And they also have beer and wine, and they have a wonderfully large patio. So to extra keep things safe to start, we're actually gonna, and being Minnesota here, it'll be nice out. We're gonna try to do this outside. We'll have a microphone set up and everything, and they have a little bit of a tented canopy kind of area. They also have some fire pits, some hay bales, picnic tables, and the big question that many of you asked, parking. Yes, they do have 2 parking lots. So it's close to Portland on 66th Street in Richfield. And we've never been in Richfield before, but you know what? It's kind of, close to the east side. So it's just a little bit farther south than we were at Moon Palace. But I think it won't be too hard for hopefully people from St. Paul or Minneapolis at least to join us in person, and anyone else that can make it, love to see you there. But I will continue to offer a Zoom version of it for at least a few months to see how things go. That will be the same book that we do. Yeah, so May 20th is the first one at Local Roots, and we have a schedule there through early October. And it might get cold by October, we'll see, but then the fire pit will get fired up or something. But October 7th, that's still a nice time to be outside in Minnesota, hopefully. And then we'll see what happens after that. Maybe Moon Palace will be ready to welcome us back at that point. But I'm excited to finally secure this. I've been talking back and forth with Local Roots quite a bit. I think they're going to be a really great fit. Tony, one of our regular attendees, maybe he's here in the chat tonight. We'll find out. He knows the owners, and he's been there before. Maybe some of you other Richfielders have been there, hopefully. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to see you guys in real life. It's going to be great. And sorry for our friends now here on the Zoom who won't be able to join those. But like I said, we will still have good Zoom conversations about those same books. So,
Hey, Jeff,
but yes, Lisa.
do we know when the Zoom dates will be? Are they going to be like the same second Wednesday things?
So for now, at least through July, the Zoom dates in May, June, and July. Well, the first one is still Cinco de Mayo, and it is Mexican Gothic. I don't know about a Writers and Lovers one yet for the 20th, but then the June and July ones are going to be the first Wednesday of June, July. So I have this here in front of me, and it says they are 6/9. June 9th is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Really exciting thriller. I'm reading it right now about gentrification, kind of like Get Out. Highly recommend it. That's 6/9, the Zoom for that one. And then 7/7 is the Zoom for Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is by the author of The Martian. I've talked about that book a bit. It's not even out yet, but it comes out early May, and we'll cover it in early July. Otherwise, I'm doing all paperbacks for the summer, except for the Andy Weir book. And I feel it's a little special case there. He's so popular and so big. You'll probably be able to get it for really cheap at Costco or something, or wherever you buy your books. Maybe our bookshop link that I'm sharing in the chat would work for you. That'd be great too. Other books coming up in the summer for in-person are Luster by Raven Leilani. That's our August book. Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey. That is our September book. And I don't know why I'm calling it summer, but it's Minnesota. So October 7th, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So yeah, you guys voted on these. I had a longer list, and some of those other ones will show up in the fall. They'll show up in the winter too. So right now I have a list of books that could get us through, 2022. And hey, if we get another pandemic, I'm ready. I'm ready to go twice a month, 2 books a month again. Who knows? Maybe in the winter we'll do 2 different books, but for the summer, let's take it a little easier. Let's get back to normal, and let's do 1 book a month. And hopefully you guys can join us. So that's my other icebreaker. Have you gotten your shot? Are you scheduled to get a shot? And are you planning on joining us sometime May, June, July at Local Roots? I hope the answer is yes. I have my first shot. My second shot will be towards the end of April. I will be fully vaccinated by before our May 20th event. It just worked out that way. I knew I had faith that I would be vaccinated by the end of May because the way Minnesota was going, and I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, I'm happy to say. So, all right, so icebreakers are out there. Anyone have any questions? Anyone want to kick us off? I'd like to tell you a little bit about the author to get things going. Max Brooks, really interesting guy. Maybe you've read World War Z by him. That was maybe his most popular. Previous to this, he's written stuff about Minecraft. He writes really interesting pop culture stuff. Kind of funny situation with that. He is Mel Brooks' son, but not only is he Mel Brooks' son, he's Anne Bancroft's son. So his mom was Anne Bancroft, Mrs. Robinson from The Graduate, if you're not immediately familiar with the actress. So he grew up with very famous parents, and he had dyslexia, and it was really tough for him. He didn't do well in school. And this is part of the reason why he put so much effort into the audiobook versions of his books, and why he wants to make sure that they are always like the best, with like a full cast, really well done and exciting audiobooks, because for someone like him with dyslexia, it really helps to do it that way. And he had his mom, Anne Bancroft, really advocate for him, was really the one who had to teach the teachers what his situation was, and that it wasn't that he was what they initially thought was just like a spoiled rich Hollywood kid who didn't care about school or his grades and kept getting bad grades. He's actually really smart, really accomplished guy, but he just had to overcome his dyslexia. And his mom was really instrumental in doing that. He's often described his mom, Anne Bancroft, as similar to the historical figure Hedy Lamarr, which is kind of interesting if you go deeper into the whole Mel Brooks thing. I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan myself, like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs. There's a character, Hedley Lamarr, that is a reference to Hedy Lamarr. And Hedy Lamarr actually sued and won some money from Mel Brooks because of that. But he had the utmost respect for Hedy Lamarr, and it was meant as a compliment, but he didn't mind like giving her money that he made off of Blazing Saddles for the joke name of Hedley Lamarr using there. But anyway, that's apparently what Anne Bancroft was like as a mom, and she was really like a scientist at heart. But people just wanted her to keep being like a Mrs. Robinson type, and that's being an actor in Hollywood, or an actress in Hollywood at least. So What else can I tell you about Max Brooks? Let's see. He was born in 1972. Yeah, he's from LA. Let's see. I got a few more things, fun things. I'll put it in the chat. And I would love to hear from anyone who wants to maybe answer an icebreaker question or tell us what they thought of the book to kick things off. Maybe you just finished it today or fairly recently and you have a fresh take on it. Anyone have a hand up? I see Dr. Todd's got his hand up. So Todd, I'm going to you. May I unmute you? Talk to us, Todd.
Thanks. Yeah, and I personally think that you're missing the most important thing of the Max Brooks, which I found, it just took me back, is that he's an instructor at West Point.
Yeah.
And quite intellectually accomplished in like warfare stuff. And it's like, now we're beginning to like blow my mind of, here's this guy talking about Sasquatch, and he teaches at West Point and is teaching them, and it makes me kind of think of his dad, of what would have happened if you put his dad in teaching a classroom full of West Point things, besides lots of gas. But anyway, the book, I give it a 4, 4 stars.
4 out of 5, Todd?
Yeah, 4 out of 5.
Excellent.
I have to admit, it was kind of weird getting into it, and I did not like, actually, initially, the voice of Kate. I did the audio.
Okay.
I need to do that because of time. But the voice of Kate was very annoying to me initially. But then you kind of get into the groove of it. She sounded like a whiny patient, and it's like, no, stop it. That said, I have to honestly say that it's fiction. The book, you know, at the moment it introduced NPR people, near and dear to my heart. You know, Terry Gross and Kai
Rizdal.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God, is this really nonfiction, or is this still fiction? I had to go back and look at it to see that way. So I thought, well, there's a good characteristic of the book that you made me do Chase, to really see if this stuff was real. But
yeah, and to further you know, go another level on that. A lot of the science, you know, is, I mean, it's heavily researched. Max Brooks does attack every topic that he writes about as though he said it's often like he's going to school on that. Like for years, he will just read up on it. And for him, he really wanted this book to pass muster with the Bigfoot conspiracy theorists or believers and stuff. And so, I mean, you know, the stuff that's in there is based on, he didn't make those things up. And he actually placed it, the other level to this is he is like the person that is relaying this information that has written down. So there's like Max Brooks, the character is like the one who has compiled these outtakes from the, you know, these journals and stuff like that. So he's the one who's kind of put it all together. It's kind of, it's not like mentioned heavily, but if you go back and look, it's actually, so the person who is like the overarching, the one who's like supposedly found all of this and put it together is Max Brooks, a character, but it's based on, of course, Max Brooks. So yeah, really interesting. Now Judy Greer is who does, and I will stand up for Judy Greer. I love her, and I think I know what you mean. You know, her voice might be almost like Fran Drescher like at first, and it might not be like your favorite voice. But if you remember her from Arrested Development, or you see her as the mom in Ant-Man, in Marvel's Ant-Man and stuff. I mean, I really like Judy Greer, and I was kind of excited that it was her. But I feel like there are so many other great voices in it that. Even if you didn't like hers, you might get someone else's. But
yeah, it was fine by the end. I didn't like the ending. I didn't think the ending has authenticated or authentic as the beginning and middle.
Interesting.
So
So let's get to we'll get to that, and because I actually really did like the ending, but I would love to dive in on that a little bit more. I see that I have to get to Liz Boyd from the Friends of the St. Paul Library, a great sponsor of Books and Bars. Liz is here, and I think Liz wants to tell us a bit about the Minnesota Book Awards, which are coming up. So Liz, are you ready and able to discuss the
I
Minnesota Book
am.
Awards with
And
us?
Jeff,
Hi,
it's
Liz.
so good to see you. I haven't
Good to
seen
see
you
you,
for
Liz.
so long. So
It's been a long time.
thrilled
Yeah.
to see your smiling face. And I must admit up front, I haven't read this book, but my son's nickname on his football team was Sasquatch. So, we've got that going for us.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library. And we are working hard to put together a virtual Minnesota Book Awards. And since you all are readers, I think you would be a great audience for the Minnesota Book Awards. And it's free and it's a virtual event. And but you do need to register. And so you need to register at the Friends of the St. or excuse me, at the friends.org /ceremony. And if you'll all sign up for it, it should be great fun. And in fact, our very own Jeff Kamen is an MC for one of the categories. So you'll have a familiar face if you're watching that evening. Leading up to the book awards, we have all sorts of blogs and videos and all that featuring all of the finalists. And to access that information, you need to go to the friends.org /blog. These are like tongue twisters.
I shared the friends.org /ceremony in our chat. What's the other link that you'd like to share, Liz?
/blog, which
Okay.
has interviews with all of the finalists, and we'll eventually have some videos with all of the finalists. So there's a plethora of information there, as we say. And additionally, if you could follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, then all of those links will come up as they become available. And I think that's all I have to say, but it's a wonderful event, and it's really going to be a fun evening. We're having a lot of fun putting it together. So there it is. Any questions I can answer?
Well, Liz, the great thing about it is, now with our Zoom Books and Bars, we do have people from different parts of the country. So, for instance, Todd from San Diego, he could see the Minnesota Book Awards.
Wow.
Any of our friends in California, any of our friends in Texas, Florida, New York. If you're with us tonight, you can always go to the friends.org /ceremony, and I've shared a couple links in our chat. But yeah, you should definitely check it out. And Liz is right, I do get to MC at least one of the categories, and maybe I'll pop up in some other fashion on that evening. So stick around for that fun. Should be good. But yeah, Liz, it's been too long. Great to see you. I see you have a furry friend crawling around down there somewhere. Very exciting. I tried to wear I don't have anything Bigfoot related to wear, and I figured Chuck E. Cheese, I told my wife, is the closest thing I have to Bigfoot, and she was like, how is that like Bigfoot? I'm like, I don't know, it's like a giant beast that shouldn't be that big, right? There should be no mice that are that large, except for like, I don't know, New York, but then he's like Ratso Rizzo or something. Anyway, so yeah, so Chuck E. Cheese is the closest I could get to a Bigfoot shirt right now, but maybe one of you has something more Bigfoot related. But Liz, thank you. And if there's anything else, Liz, feel free to put more links in the chat, or if anyone else has a question for Liz, feel free to raise your hand. Liz, are you sticking around for a bit for our chat?
I'll stick around for a little while, and then I'll head out. So, all right. Good to see all of y'all.
Thanks, Liz. All right. I see Allie has her hand up. Allie, are you with us?
I sure am. Liz has a nice setup there. That looks great.
Yeah, Liz has got a really cool setup.
That's really profesh. I like it. I first of all need to tell you all, I was going into the fridge for lunch something. I look up the beer that I was going to drink tonight has a Sasquatch on it.
Perfect.
I was
What is it?
going to my husband it's a berry blonde from Liftbridge.
Nice.
So I thought that was incredible that it was staring at me from the fridge. And
you didn't plan that? That was just...
I did not plan it. I had the
Wow.
beer, and then I didn't even notice until today. So I'm very excited. So cheers to that. I'm very excited for in person. Looking forward to that. I'm getting 1 dose shot on Tuesday. So it's exciting
Excellent.
stuff.
Way to go.
I like this book a lot. I think I mentioned on Instagram, Jeff, that's like not something I would ever have picked up on my own, which is always the best kind of books and bars
Yep.
read. And I wasn't super familiar with either Mel Brooks or Max Brooks a ton. So I was really delighted by it. It was just easy to read and also terrifying, but fun at the same time. I felt like I really went on a ride. And I really liked it, and I'm eager to hear what people who are big fans of this kind of book thought of it as well. Because as someone new to it, I thought it was really great.
Ellie, did it change? Did you have a preconceived idea? Did you have a thought on whether there were such thing as a Sasquatch before this book? And did it change after reading this book?
I haven't really thought about it too much. I guess I wasn't, I mean, I knew of it, kind of like the Loch Ness Monster, that it's a thing. But though it was so vivid and so scary. And I think the scariest part was that when they threw the rocks, that was just the way the way he described it. And I actually read it, so I didn't listen. And I actually liked it so much that I think I am going to give it a listen after the rave reviews everyone's been giving. But I mean, it definitely put a little bit of a like, oh gosh, this is so chilling and real. But it also wasn't heavy. It wasn't, I thought it was going to be more kind of like post-apocalyptic or like kind of heavy to read. And it was really fun. It was just really fun to read.
Well, what it reminded me of at first, and I think part of what helps ease you into it is, it seems very realistic in the sense of a community doing this sort of thing. You know, it's almost like an Elon Musk type or someone like that who has the money and the smarts to, we're going to not necessarily off the grid, but we're going to go where the grid isn't and get everything delivered to us, or we're gonna, you know, just reuse what we can and live in this sort of perfect situation that only a few people will get to experience in this beautiful setting. But what Max Brooks constantly writes about is our over-reliance on modern technology and our lack of any sort of ability to take care of ourselves once that stuff is taken away. As it, you know, once your phone dies, what do? You know, and he's frequently written about this sort of thing, about how you know, and this comes into with his military smarts and stuff too. It's like I think he thinks that we've all forgotten how to do certain things. Now, the interesting thing is that Max Brooks actually made the weapons that he tells you how to make, for the most part, in the book. He road tested those, and he said he won't put that all on YouTube because it would be like a how-to for kids to like make like really dangerous weapons. But he went through like the process and like tried it all out. And the, you know, and he really did research the whole, like, you know, we're going to turn methane into this, and we're going to, you know, use your waste, you know, in this way, that sort of a thing. So it reminded me a bit of The Circle in that sense, almost. It was like this super high tech, almost like utopian thing, but you know something isn't quite right, or, you know, what are we sacrificing to have that? What are we giving up? And then, you know, it turns around and it does become, I mean, it's really in-depth horror. I mean, I said there's so many other books that kind of dabble on that, but don't really go there. This one, I mean, people are being torn limb from limb. I mean, it is really, you know, it's well described gore. It's very gory. Lori's had her hand up for a while. Lori, are you with us still? Talk to us. Hi, Lori.
Oh my gosh, I'm typing too. So a couple things. Just to piggyback on what you were saying, I thought it reminded me of The Martian, because tech got us there, but then he was stranded and he had to go totally analog.
Right.
And you know, I'm a gardener, and I was like super digging what they were doing when I didn't mean to do that.
That was good. I liked it.
But when Prime goes down, what are you gonna do, right? And I read this right before like big COVID lockdown, so I was like, okay, I got this. It's okay. I actually wish it was longer. He reminded me of like a junior varsity Michael Crichton. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, because he was very accessible and still quite scientific. but like, I did feel like he could go deeper into the science and into the, like, I felt like the taxonomy of the Sasquatch was deeper than really anything else. And I didn't know that Max Brooks was Mel Brooks' kid. That makes a lot of sense now. But I super liked it. I wish it had been more pages.
You know, it's interesting because have you read World War Z? Some of his books
Well,
are
I
longer.
did.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the difference is that the point of views in World War Z were of scientists, were of doctors. Like, you know, it wasn't inaccessible science. It was just that you were reading from those perspectives. And, you know, Devolution did a little bit of that, but not nearly as much.
Hmm.
So, and which I'm glad of. I thought I find the different narrative voice very confusing. I can't read Game of Thrones. Um, but yeah, like I think he could have gotten more into it.
Yeah, that's a case where the audio really does help with all the different, casts doing the different parts. I know what you mean. And same thing with World War Z. I see in the chat, Allie's asking. Yeah, if you like this one, I do recommend World War Z, and also the audio for that. Mark Hamill does part of it. I mean, it's great, but it's a great read either way if you don't do the audio. I do recommend that one if you can handle zombies and stuff. Interesting as some of your points, Laurie. I really like your Crichton comparison. I can see that. I like the Martian comparison, also very apt. I see in the chat someone else brought that up too. And I think when you talk about, first of all, quote of the taxonomy of the Sasquatch, overheard at Books and Bars. I love hearing. I mean, you just don't get all those words together in the same sentence very often. It's very exciting to overhear that tonight. So yeah, so great stuff.
That's what convinces you that it's real. I mean,
yeah. So this is what. So to your point, he has said. Brooks has said. When people have asked for more of the science, he said it's a fine line between a lecture and something that you care about and is entertaining and you want to read. And he's like, and I'm always erring on the side of this has to be a story that you're interested in with characters that you're interested in first and foremost. And if you learn some stuff, or if I can spoon feed some other things in there, but it can't feel like a TED Talk or a lecture too much. And so he's looking for that balance. And if anything, so whether he strikes it or not, yeah, is one of the things we're here for tonight. But thanks for sharing. I see Theana's had her hand up for a while. Theana M, talk to us.
Hi. I was really excited about this book when we talked about it last time, so I need to make my contributions here. A fun fact about that, like research, it's interesting to hear about how much research Max Brooks did on zombies or survivalism, because in 6th grade I had to learn how to write a research paper, and the whole premise was like learn how to get sources and citations and gather facts, and I chose to write that on Sasquatch. And it was the most difficult project I've ever done because it's not real. So all of my sources were like varied or like weird websites. And like it was very complicated versus like, I think he picked a lane, focused on some of the lore, and just, I thought that was kind of funny to hear that he did a lot of research on that. And I just have a couple points. So one is, my favorite thing about reading Max Brooks's books, which in my mind means World War Z in this book, is like exploring a problem through this like fantastical yet accessible lens. So World War Z was zombies, but really it was like how would society handle something like a plague? And then to read that and then see how COVID plays out, where social dynamics, cultural dynamics influence how different countries and different people are handling that. It was just, that's my favorite thing about it, is just reading through how something like that would happen. And with this, I think it's more survivalism. How can you fend for yourself without the amenities of our modern world? How many weeks ago was it where Texas didn't have running water or electricity? And we saw that that's catastrophic in our modern world. So I think it's kind of interesting to put a magnifying lens on that within this community that is selling itself on being like self-sustaining and one with nature, and that first meal they have is like it's salmon caught from the stream, and it's this and that, and it's homemade, and it's like, okay, well then none of them know how to fish, obviously, because that's like not something they ever talk about again once they need to get their own food. And it's just, I thought he did such a great job with that. And I know we haven't really touched on the ending yet, but I do think there's a lot of like female stories, female leads. Like the leader of the Yeti group is, I believe, female. Alpha is a female Yeti, right? So I thought that was interesting. It's exploring her relationship with Dan. And then the last line that she writes in her journal is, "My man is dead." She kills Alpha, the Yeti, and she says, "My man is dead." And that's basically like the last journal entry that we read that she writes. And it's like, then we're given evidence that she survives beyond that point, but that's the last thing she decides to write in her journal. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to explore.
Yeah, well, the way I took it as, and I'm interested in anyone else's thoughts, but we basically have this sort of like she's now a hunter, and she's going basically and surviving off in the woods with like her like pseudo daughter, right? So it's like a mother-daughter pairing, and it's woman versus woman. And she's learned these skills, and now she's on the attack, and she's like, living off the land, and going to be like, her and this young girl are going to be, trying to kill the other Sasquatches, and just, I don't know if she's ever going to come out of it, and what's going to happen at that point. But I like how it's left open-ended like that, and because of the style in which it was written, it allows for that sort of, and we don't know, it's that open-ended sort of ending. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was kind of great how, she turns from, the character, it's quite a change, that she gets to at the end, and how powerful she is, and how it is, like two, women, I mean, I don't know what we're calling a female Sasquatch, a woman, but, going up against each other. But you said you wrote a paper, and you said they're not real. So your research paper you wrote in 6th grade has proven to you that there is no such thing as Sasquatch.
And
Do you have any, can you cite some references right now? Prove to me.
On the internet in 2002. So I think the sources are probably a little better now. It was like different regions of the world have different stories about what Sasquatch looks like and what color they are, or if they're friendly or not, or so I think that's kind of interesting to think about the lore across different cultures.
It is interesting, and I was trying to I was talking to my wife about it, saying, okay, so there's no evidence, but like, what are the possibilities? The possibilities, why haven't we ever found any bones? And maybe they do something. Maybe they, they bring their bones with them, or they burn them, or they crush them up, or or they're so desolate, so remote that there are still some areas that we haven't explored, that's where they are. I don't know. I mean, again, I
remember.
They're not real, but I guess that might not be. So.
Do you remember in like the early aughts, there was like these sci-fi shows where it showed like how mermaids could be real, or how dragons could be real, and like how, potentially they had hydrogen sulfide in their pouches, and that's how they lit shit on fire, and blah, blah. And like, I never saw one for Sasquatch, but it's all the same stuff. Like it permeates different cultures. It's over multiple years. Like, I think they're real.
What's wrong?
I think Sasquatch are real.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, hey, don't cover your mouth when you say that part. All right, now we got one on each side. This is good. All right, I like it. I'm glad you think it's real. Like I said, I want to believe. I'm not taking this side yet, but maybe by the end of this, we will have official, conclusive proof one way or the other. This is our goal tonight. Can you imagine if a book club here was the one that discovered Bigfoot? Tonight we are opening the Bigfoot vault. I am Geraldo Rivera. This is going to be great. But first, Courtney's got her hand up for a while. So Courtney Klingon, talk to us.
Yeah, hey, I was going to say I agree a lot with what Lori was saying about the comparisons with The Martian, and that the like scientific figuring out survival aspect was really interesting. But then you lost me at believing Sasquatch is real. And then,
But wait a minute, Courtney, there's a Bigfoot right behind you on your shoulder. I don't know if you can see this in the video.
yeah, seriously, we'll just keep that to myself. But no, I feel like I really liked kind of that it was from the journal's perspective with the outside experts kind of filling in the narration, and I thought that was really interesting. But I feel like what that then kind of set it up to lack was like all the other characters were so flat or just like stereotypes, caricatures, and I could not keep them straight. I didn't know who was who. They were just all like nutty people. Like I couldn't kind of like predict or understand their motivations and how they were kind of putting things together. And so I feel like, yeah, Lori, you said you wanted it to be longer, like from a more explained science perspective. I wanted it to be longer from more of like the human side about like what is going on. I feel like the author, they like hinted at some deeper backstory about like relationship issues or like why her brother had to leave. I'm kind of forgetting. There was something, I feel like that was kind of like alluded to, but then never addressed or came back to there, which like makes sense. If you're writing in your journal, you wouldn't be like, all right, dear journal, let me give you the backstory of my relationship and here's where it comes. But that was one thing that I feel like kind of took it away, was like relating to the characters that way.
Yeah, I feel like there were a few that were sort of forgettable, or they're stereotypical. You're like, oh, I get it. This is like this couple, is annoying, and they're like this.
Oh,
But
these
then
are
there were a
crunchy
couple,
ones.
like Mostar. I feel like we do really get into someone like Mostar, and I think Mostar is such a major character and really interesting. Has such a cool background. Is so pivotal, and maybe seems like someone who isn't going to be as important, I think, at first, and then becomes as important as anybody in this story. So I think it's who Kate decided to focus on, and it's like in anyone's you're the star of your own life, or in your supporting cast and someone else's. But it's interesting then to see who Kate writes about her relationship, and how it's not so great, and and her lazy husband and all that stuff. But then we get like Mostar rising in estimation as it goes along, and there's certain others that kind of fall to the wayside. Definitely. And also it's like in any sort of good horror movie though, it's like, who's the first that's going to get killed? You know what I mean? Like you can start picking up like it's going to be, okay, well, let's get rid of these couple.
Some minor characters. And then
yeah, these are easy to kill. We need to knock a few of these off. Oh, this guy's dead. He's going off into the woods by himself. He's not coming back. That sort of a thing. So, but thanks. I see Will's had his hand up for a while. Will, you still with us? Talk to us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I was a little disappointed as a big fan of World War Z. I think I was expecting something of a much more global scope again. So I was a little disappointed that like the little Rainier, at first I thought the Rainier community thing was just going to be like a microcosm of like a larger Sasquatch invasion. And I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed when it was just that. I found it hard to get into the survivalist part of the narrative, because for a group of people that wanted to live so remotely in the wilderness, they had like no knowledge of like, what the wild actually meant. And I found that like a little bit disappointing. Or I guess interesting maybe. And I love all the touches though of like modern urbanism and like their sense of like global morality. Like they talk a lot about all their no waste food that like they pay tons of money to fly all the way up, and it's like, what's the carbon footprint on your twice a week HelloFresh delivery? And like, but it's no waste, so it's super good. I thought that was very funny. I guess for like other characters we were calling out, I really like Dan. I find myself really relating to him. I guess I'm just like, I want to be that person that is useful in a crisis. Like, I'll go clean solar panels. I'll go dig ditches or, shave spikes. I just want to be helpful. I also do definitely believe Sasquatch were real at one point. I think there's too much mythology across the continent for it to not be a thing. And reading the book Sapiens, I think maybe they were just a different species of sapiens wandering around that got extinct out by Homo sapiens. So that's my personal theory.
I buy it. I like it. And Will, you bring up a great point. What was the way they worded it? You're either useful or you're a liability, right? Like at some point, if you're not, or you're either contributing or you're a taker. What was the word they used again? The exact words for there are two things you are. Because you're either contributing to the group or you're just taking from it, right? It'll come to me in a second, but maybe Kara knows. Kara's had her hand up for a while. Kara, what do you got? Talk to us.
Well, I don't know about any of that. I would say, like, I'm interested in all of the people who claim to be believers. I'm not at all. I think that theory that maybe like Sasquatch are like actually like Neanderthals and like, you know, the legends go back to when like, you know, our species and Neanderthals were like able to actually interact with each other. Like there's some oral histories that do go back like 50,000 years, like Aboriginals. So I do think maybe that's a possibility. That's the closest I get to being a believer. That said, if that is true, then this is like terrible take on it because all of the like Neanderthal DNA that shows up in people's, you know, 23andMe's would prove that we didn't go around hunting each other to death, baby. We had some good times. So, but yeah, I think like, I lost my train of thought. I will say this book was not what I expected at all. When I saw the title, I definitely thought it was going to be about a bunch of people like hunting Sasquatch to extinction. I was like, oh, the poor Sasquatch. I'm going to have to read about like the horrible humans and how they're treating the Sasquatch. And so I was definitely not prepared for them to be like, oh yes, the Sasquatch are the monsters. That's not like, if I did believe, that's not how I would picture them. I would picture them like other great apes, which are, you know, capable of violence, but in general, you know, eat a lot of vegetables. And so I guess, I don't know. I thought this book was fine. It was a fast read. It was interesting. I think I don't like it as much as a lot of other people did. Again, I run into the problem of if there's no characters that I like, I have a hard time enjoying the book. That maybe is just me as a reader. I usually want to be able to root for somebody. I was rooting for the Sasquatch to kill most of the people because I thought they were like awful. And I was like, you're the worst. Like people, the only way it was believable, the way they were acting and how stupid they were is that they all were like rich people. Like you are so like arrogant that you would go off into the wilderness and not have like any supplies. You're not prepared for like anything at all. I hated them. They were just so awful. There's like a sentence in the book where like someone else mentions that there's lots of people who live in the mountains and they were like almost excited to be cut off from civilization and they did just fine. And like, there's so many people who are like that. Like, I mean, I'm not necessarily like that, but if I went to live in a cabin, I would certainly have way more supplies. And like, I know how to start a fire with like flint and, you know, basic survival skills. Not prepared to fight to like save my life. I would prefer to just get killed immediately, but like, I certainly could handle being like snowed in for a length of time. And like, I don't know, just the arrogance of all of those people. The only person I liked was Mostar, and I thought it was so tragic that she died trying to help all of those terrible people. And I didn't really care for Kate either. And I thought like the ending, like just the thought, imagining Kate and this little child, like going around hunting down the last of the Sasquatch. I was like, that's so sad. I don't know. I thought it was such a bummer of an ending. And I was like, look, even if those Sasquatch hunted you and were bad, that doesn't mean all Sasquatch are bad. Now you're trying to exterminate a species. I'm not for this. I don't know. I was bummed out at the ending. I didn't like that speculation. And I was like, ugh, I hope, like, I don't know what I hope. I hope they got found and taken to a hospital.
Yeah, I think, are we supposed to see, I imagine it's sort of like the person who is just completely cracked and become what they are hunting, you know, become this like wild animal, that then, you know, is going to go and kill other large animals and eat them, because like she's just like snapped. Like if you had seen, you know, your community ripped apart literally in front of you, you know, and like torn, you know, to shreds, and people just killed like that, and I
I
don't
mean,
know,
Jeff,
like
not
maybe
to
it's
like
like
get too real, but people do see that happen and they don't go and become monsters. Like, I mean, like
Yep.
there's really terrible things that happen all over the world, and like to just be like, and now she will become the hunter. It was a very like male power fantasy, like Rambo type situation, and I'm like, okay.
I super
All
feel
right.
this, Kara. I know I've talked a lot. I'm just going to be short.
Sure.
So I had to sort of suspend my disbelief. So I'm a Girl Scout. I'm a person of the world. I live in Minnesota. I garden. And I was like, who are these people who can't live without Amazon Prime in the forest? And why would they want to? And I just had to be like, that's gone from my brain. But yeah, I totally see. And I think we could do a whole other conversation on how this could be Mel Brooks satire on our current society, as like
Sure.
we invaded this peaceful people's land, and they're just defending themselves from our intrusion. And what the hell does this mean for our whole society? I don't know that we have time to unpack that.
Well, right. So then like the real animals are, you know, are this green village of people, and Kate, and in going after them. Interesting turn there. I had a great segue when Kara said male power fantasy. I said, and we have Kevin with his hand up. So speaking of a male power fantasy, Kevin Mattson, give it to us. Give us the male power fantasy that is Kevin Mattson. Talk to us.
Yeah, I don't really think of myself as a male power fantasy kind of guy, but you know, like maybe
I say Kevin Rambo Mattson is what I normally describe you as.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think I don't know. Anyway, I have a couple quick things. I have a Sasquatch shirt that I put on. Let's see if we can find if Sasquatch shows up there. So for our meeting.
So did you see HBO Max has a new movie coming out? It's Sasquatch versus Chuck E. Cheese. Are you in?
I mean, it seems like we could be in, Jeff. I mean, this sounds awfully very similar to your shirt situation. So anyway, no, I listened to Kara, and I think I felt the same. A lot of people, it sounded like a lot of this group really liked this book, and I didn't. I mean, I just didn't feel it. I didn't think the characters were that great. I mean, I don't necessarily, I'm not opposed to reading, you know, people being killed and horror kind of stuff, but yeah,
I love it.
You know, I just didn't think it was that great. I mean, it was like, okay, where are we going? You know, the characters were kind of, people died, and I thought, that's fine. That's okay. They're gone, you know, like, so it didn't draw me in. My brother lives in Seattle. We talk a lot about Sasquatch. I love the idea of Sasquatch, sort of like you said, Jeff. I want to believe. So, but in reality, no, he's not out there. So, yeah, I don't know. I got a couple of those things. Oh, I should give a shout out. I have a friend in South Dakota who read this book and wanted to come or join us, but I said, oh, Zoom, great, we can do that. Her name is Rainey. She might come to one of our or join one of our Zoom meetings in the future. She might watch this later. Jeff, thank you for putting these up on YouTube. So hopefully, if people are watching them on YouTube, this is a great intro to Books and Bars. But
hi, Rainey. I hope you're watching this on YouTube. We're using after Mount Rainier. That's really convenient then for you in this book. So, all right. Thank you, Kevin. Evelyn's had her hand up for a while. Evelyn, talk to us.
Hi, everyone. To answer your questions, I think I'm with you, Jeff. I think I want to believe. Do I want Sasquatch to be real? No, but I'm open to, I'm willing to suspend disbelief. Like if things come forward, I'm willing. I mean, the legends from different, and I shouldn't even say legends, like oral histories from many different cultures, you know, talk about them. They may be extinct. I could see that. There was okay, just to go off of what Kevin was talking about. Yeah, like the characters were like, there wasn't anyone really compelling. Mostar was good. You kind of needed to have somebody there to sort of light a fire under everyone else who didn't know what to even do to get things started. And at least give the characters options on how to react, like an option to actually do something from someone who's experienced. But I did like a lot of the ideas put forward. I liked the, nobody has talked about her yet, but the park ranger, Snell, she was fantastic. And like everything she said, like was really compelling to me, with just how we as humans in like a developed world treat nature, and our like lack of respect for it, just thinking that we are an apex predator, without like, yeah. And there was a lot of criticism there on sort of coddling animals, almost like, rather than respecting nature, like, oh, can't hurt the deer or the mountain lion or whatever when they're coming to eat you. Like all of that was really interesting, especially since I am in the Sedona Desert right now and I'm doing hiking, and like I'm like freaked out like all the time now.
The cougar story is true.
Right.
That's a true story. And that was the origin. That was the kernel of the idea for Max Brooks. He said when he read that story, that's kind of what sparked this for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be careful out there.
Yeah, we're trying to be. And then the other thing, just to go off on the oral history tradition, like he sort of snuck it in there with the explosion of Mount Rainier, but there is a really compelling oral history of a big volcano explosion that happened before the the advent of like written words in the indigenous peoples in the area, but they've set down that story, and it really destroyed the whole area. And the threat is
volcanic ash is deadly, and it wasn't even fully explored here how bad. I mean, what can happen to you when you're exposed to volcanic ash. It's really bad from some of the stuff that I've read, but yeah, well, thanks, Evelyn. Thanks for taking time out of your vacation, your hike, to still be with us.
Wouldn't miss it.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Appreciate it. Donna's had her hand up for a while. Donna, are you still with us?
Yeah, I am.
Hi.
You asked a question in the chat about the writing style, and
yeah,
I'll just say that that is one of the things I did enjoy about this book. I know we talked last time a bit about writers that try to do lots of different types of writing within a book, and then sometimes people almost have to listen to a book to really be able to follow the language and so on. And in this case, I really liked how there was the combination of the journal writing and the interviews, and then the kind of reference book kind of writing, with from that Sasquatch manual or whatever that was. There was something about that, the kind of no nonsense commentary from the park ranger, and and then even the way the different people spoke. I mean, as they were quoted by Kate, in terms of their dialogue, and those kind of goofballs that ran this place and then totally disappeared once everybody's in crisis, and they were just nowhere to be seen, for a long time. And I thought that really drew you into the story to kind of get that variety of the writing, and the fact that we didn't even get a look at the Sasquatch until quite a ways in. I mean, there was a moment where Kate felt that there were eyes on her, but then later is when she finally, I mean, it's almost halfway in before she finally sees what it looks like, and you get this kind of ominous presence. And so I thought the writing was pretty clever that way. And all of that commentary on our dependence on technology. And I laughed out loud when they realized they had no tools. I mean, just even basic things like that. So they have to make a spear out of it, using a butter knife or a basic steak knife or something. I mean, if they're only getting groceries delivered, every week as they need them, because they don't want to overdo and all of that, like the people that are actually knowledgeable about how to survive in the wilderness. And of course, they have all kinds of ways of storing food and keeping it and hunting for it and all that. But these people were just there to kind of commune with nature, and that gobbledygook from the woman I don't remember her name, Yvette or something, whatever her name was, Yvette. And she was talking at the beginning about how we're communing with nature, and this Una or whatever her name is like this sort of a Bigfoot character that embraces us with warmth and loves us. And no, come on, this is not how nature works, because people are just, they're basic food when there's a crisis like this for those animals. So anyway, I thought the writing was clever, and that was kind of kept me going. And I am interested in paranormal stuff. I have a brother that was abducted by aliens, and I think that I always was an X-File fan and stuff, so it is kind of fun to read about this stuff. But so I thought he did a good job for what he set out to do.
Donna, thank you. I love how you ended that without any doubt. You didn't say you have a brother who claims to be abducted by aliens. You said you have a brother who was abducted by aliens, and you're just going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at that for now. Let's leave it at that for now. All right. I'm making a note that I have a lot to talk to Donna about soon. Awesome. I have been told that Pete forgot how to raise his hand. Can you believe it? Pete is our sometimes frequent co-host. He can't remember how to raise his hand. So Pete, Lisa, the current co-host, has let me know that you are looking to speak. And Pete, I would love to hear from you. So Pete, your hand is not up, but I know that you're with us. Talk to us, Pete.
Thank you. And I appreciate all of the online help. It's simply.
Have other people told you how to raise your hand yet? No.
Yes. Yeah. The reactions thing. I have a limited set of options for some reason, which is typically a reboot. I applied a patch today, blah, 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 IT world. But I love all this commentary, and that Donna can give us a connection to space aliens is really the total.
Of course, if anyone could. No, we knew today we were only going to be one step away. If we might not be able to prove the existence of Bigfoot, but at least we know that Donna's brother was abducted by aliens. And I'm just saying we have that. So go, Pete.
Well, yeah. Now, my first reaction isn't to doubt people. I want to hear what they have to say. But I enjoyed this book, but I totally appreciate everyone's commentary, like why it wasn't their favorite. They didn't like the characters, and but for me, it's just like this thing was just true to the tropes. It was like at the beginning they talked about the poop. God damn it, the poop's coming in, and then every gun on the mantle came through.
It's Chekhov's poop is what that was. If you mention it's got to come back.
Yeah, they were just bringing it, and Judy. I love her. I loved her in Arrested Development. She's a brilliant comedian. She's really. Hearing her voice, all I could do, I'd start laughing. It's like when certain comedians, when they just start talking, I start laughing.
Yeah.
And she's just so brilliant with this, and in the sense that like it's not a complicated story. Again, like this isn't Chekhov. This isn't we're not. This isn't Nikolai Google or anything. We're just here to go for the ride, and they go there. And one of my favorite things in that sense of the tropes is when Katie was hit in the back with something, but it didn't fall down, it's like, wait, the rock didn't like just take her out? No, it was Vincent's head. And then it's rolling down
that
the
was
hill.
awesome.
Like, they're just like, all right, we're just going disgusting here.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm not even.
I think my wife went, oh, on that part when that happened. That was
Yeah,
great.
and Carol and I listened to the audiobook together, and it was just like, oh my God, they're going here. They're doing this, really? And then, but that's just the nature of what you signed up for with something like this. Now, whether Sasquatch is real or not, like a lot of things for me, I really doubt it, but I kind of enjoy that, like Nessie, or that people like it. It seems like harmless fun to me. So if you're all into Sasquatch, that's fine. I don't judge. But and the ending was so on brand for this book, whether you liked it or not. It's like Max goes there. It's like, all right, so Katie and Palomino are this duo that are out there superheroing, one-on-one, making Sasquatch steaks to survive in the wild. And like, oh man,
Can I just say, it's such an American ending. Like,
oh yeah, no, for sure.
That like, we would just go hunt them down.
Right. Yeah, no, or
eat them.
Right.
That's the key.
And that ending where they set it up like that, they left all this steak and jerky behind, and then the Rangers are just like, well, I'm going to try it since I'm here. Like, I know a lot of park rangers. They're not going to eat random food they find at a crime scene.
But if they did, they'd probably say it just tastes like chicken anyway. Although I wouldn't imagine that a Sasquatch would taste like chicken, but that's just what they say about everything. So,
yeah.
Well, I want to check in with Lisa, our co-host. Lisa, you mentioned that people have mentioned that the character's trauma. Can you speak to that, or anything else from the chat that you could help us?
There was Dr. Todd, who I think had to go back to work, was talking about that he felt there were realistic trauma responses, from each one's history and what they brought to the table. And like the woman who was all Zen and trying to be like really in control, Yvette, ends up being this OCD, having the problem with exercising constantly and stuff, that he felt that those were very realistic responses to the trauma. So there were some conversations about that. And each that was kind of where I went with more than the Sasquatch thing, is more of just this, like the war where these guys come into the wilderness where they shouldn't really be. They take over someone else's land. They get, a war, based a war, right? They're at war with the Sasquatch. And, then they end up going out and creating more war, right? They go out and trying to kill more. And because I think Pal, the adopted daughter, was adopted from a war region, I think they said. And then Mostar, obviously, they gave us backstory about her. So I don't know, I went more to that stuff too, and kind of what the trauma responses and what people were doing and what your survival skills really are. And it's, eat or be eaten, right?
There you go. And that's our co-host for you guys, eat or be eaten. This is what it takes. This is after 8 hours of prepping for tonight's gig, she comes up with eat or be eaten. So this is why we had to cut it short. And I was like, look, I need to go moderate this thing. I'm afraid sitting across from you at this point. But that's real life trauma is what I felt there. So thank you for allowing me to speak to that. Katie Kiesau, your hand is up. You're ready to speak. Talk to us. Katie.
So I'm only 60% of the way through this book, but I am enjoying it. I find it a very easy read. I'm not super mad about the characters because I have known people that fit all of these profiles, people that would respond in exactly these same ways. Like you've got the overthinker, you've got the nonchalant people, you got the ones that try to explain it away. Like, I get it. So like the characters make sense to me. I don't really identify with any particular one. You know, whether or not I believe in Sasquatch, are there things in the world we can't explain? Sure. Do I have an irrational fear of the closet monster, even though I'm 41 years old? Yes. So to each their own. If you believe in Sasquatch, great. Aliens, cool. Ghost, whatever, I don't care. But I haven't gotten to the point where I find any of these characters particularly annoying yet. I don't think I wish any of them dead, but maybe I'll get there. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the book. So yeah, overall, I'm enjoying it. It's a fun, easy kind of not really think about it too much read.
All right, thanks, Katie. Well, you'll think about it when you come across some beef jerky in the wild and you wonder if you should try it or not. But yeah, no spoilers.
That was the other thing I totally forgot. Like, so these people joined this thing because they were taken care of, right? That was the whole point. So when people are kind of bagging on them for not being prepared, yes, they live in the woods. Granted, they don't have any tools. They should be a little bit more prepared, but think of how many people you know in your life that wouldn't be prepared. Who keeps stores of groceries in their closet? Like, I have one little teeny tiny cupboard that is my pantry cabinet. Like, I grew up in the country, I can survive, but I don't keep a month's worth of groceries in my house. I'm only one person. I mean, even if you're a couple, do you really keep that much extra stock on hand? I mean, unless you're a doomsday prepper, which you are, go you, like, I'll come to your house when the shit goes down. But most people,
COVID times turned me into a prepper.
Yeah. Yeah. And Katie, to your point, I think, yeah, these are people that they expected, they paid whatever it took. They went through it and they expect this to be, you know, like the concierge treatment. Like, well, it just shows up like once a week, or just, you know, they shouldn't have to worry about it because they're almost like, they're in like the trial run of this, but they are, you know, they're expecting a certain level. They've been promised things, and they all buy into it. And that's part of what this is. It's part of, I think, what Max Brooks is trying to say about so much of us and our society is that, you know, we do have such a strong reliance though on, you know, I don't have to worry about it because, you know, I have this phone, you know, and I can do whatever I want with that sort of thing. And then we don't think in terms of, well, what if it goes down? You know, it's like.
And I do agree with that. Like, we do still need to go back to teaching basic skills in schools, how to cook, how to balance checkbooks, even so much as not even like prepping for end of the world type stuff. But definitely we've gotten like too far away from that when like people, I mean, I know people who can't even cook pasta. So let alone light a campfire. But
yeah, and those are people that you would not want to be stuck in the Pacific Northwest with a bunch of Sasquatches attacking you with. But you know what? Sometimes you end up in that situation. I see that Ruth has been trying to get her hand raised, and people have been very chivalrous in helping. So Ruth Denny, do you have something to say? Hi.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading this book. It was very entertaining. I think that their intention of trying to live off the land, or what, not really, they should have actually thought about that. But getting groceries flown in once a week was pretty unrealistic when you're thinking about living the way they wanted to live. So it's kind of going against the whole premise of not leaving a footprint on the earth. I guess that's what they're trying to do. I don't know. Anyway, it was kind of interesting. Being a writer, I like the way that he set this whole story up as like a report and as a journal, and him trying to find out what happened to this woman. That intrigued me, kept me reading. But I thought that some of the diary or the journal was a little too detailed. I think if you're writing a journal, unless you've done a lot of study about some of the stuff he's done, I didn't buy some of her writing of the journal. I think it should have been a little more simplistic. Also, the characters, I don't understand why they took so long to figure out where the Durants, what happened to them, because I would have wanted to know. I would have been pounding on the door. Hey, you know, you need to get out here and help us out, and we need to deal with this. You know, they're like all for one kind of situation, and the leaders of the whole thing is like they fell apart. That anyway, it was interesting. But in terms of the Sasquatch, Native people believe Sasquatch is a sacred spirit. They don't all of and if you see one, you're blessed, or you're gonna have, you know, either something's gonna happen or you have good luck, or it's something that they believe is a sacred spirit. And we over here in the Great Lakes area, we have something called a wild man, and that's a spirit as well, and not everyone sees that spirit. Also, we have little people. I don't know if anyone heard of that. We call them Pokanana. And they're kind of mischievous little spirits. Now, all Native people believe this. This is not something that we think doesn't exist. For us, it does. It's sacred. It's spiritual. And for this story, which I thought was really entertaining, for the Sasquatches to be like that, killing people, that totally is not. Most animals will not kill unless they feel threatened. So I was like, well, if you lived in nature, if you know anything about living off the land, that nature is cruel. It for sure is. And you certainly wouldn't be living in the woods with no tools and no weapons, at least a knife. So very unrealistic, but very entertaining.
Thanks, Ruth. Ruth, can I ask, do you feel that the Sasquatch as depicted in this book then had a right to feel threatened? Do you think that their way of life, or that they themselves feel threatened by this community showing up in their home?
I don't think they felt so threatened as they were probably hungry, because
Okay.
they were running away from the Mount Rainier eruption. That's how I read it, but I don't know, maybe they did. But I mean, the humans weren't much. They could have overtaken them probably before they even started to overtake them. You know what I mean?
Well,
They
great
were.
points. Great points. So should we remember, or should we go back to, do we then feel that the only reason that the Sasquatch and the humans clash here is because of the eruption, and that they wouldn't have otherwise, probably? Do you take that from the story?
I just don't see them as being violent, but you know, when animals are hungry, they're more than likely to attack you because they're
Okay,
hungry.
yeah.
But I think they got aggressive because the people did. That was my take on it.
I feel
Yeah.
like it was also because of the young ones. You know, they weren't babies, so it wasn't like super defending them, but they were still little and incapable of defending themselves. So you know, at least when they were attacking the compound in the major time, the little ones were always there. And I think that was, you know, at least as significant as the eruption.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people were encroaching on their, you know, breeding grounds or whatever. I don't know, raising their kids, foraging.
Yeah. I see a fresh hand. Andrew's with us. Andrew, talk to us.
I enjoyed the book. It was a good read. I really enjoyed actually the narrator. I thought the narrator and her husband were kind of a refreshing couple, in that they didn't have a particular, you know, they were pretty vanilla in terms of like their lifestyle and how things were going. I mean, their relationship wasn't this awful, terrible thing, but it was just kind of not cooking. And
you could see a lot of similarities with you and Lisa, right? I mean, as you read
at several points in our
I mean, I definitely thought of you as Dan in this. I was like, I'm reading this guy. This is Andrew Kloster, this lazy guy. Like, this is totally him.
The only way that
he tries out different hairstyles all the time, and he looks at
the only way
pictures of his bun.
The only way you know this wasn't Andrew Kloster is Andrew Kloster would never go that far into into the wilderness, period. Give me a break. That's no way. But in any case, I enjoyed the characters and just kind of I kept expecting the thing to go where the village would turn on itself. I didn't think that it was really going to come down to a mano-y-mano with the Sasquatch the way that I did. And I was disappointed by that. I thought that was, these people did not seem like they were going to combine as a village and fight back against the Sasquatch. And I totally felt like they were going to turn on one another and let each other down. But that was not the way that was not the way that he went. So I was surprised by that. Maybe that's a good thing. But in general, I thought that the way that I thought it was a little cliche, the way that these people go off into the wilderness. They don't know how to handle anything, and then they get trapped. It was very Jurassic Park and all of that. Entertaining, because Jurassic Park was very entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this will be a great movie. I mean, that scene where the girl gets hit by the head, there's one reason for that. That's going to be in a movie someday. Someone's getting hit by a head. But I thought that I thought it was thought provoking on how you on how we interact. But boy, I agreed with Kara that at the end, basically it was like, hey, let's hunt these guys down. Once you're threatened that way, you snap and you go after them. It's such a human response to this thing. Like, here's this. I mean, and here's the other thing about these. We already have Sasquatch. We have Sasquatch all over. They're called blue whales, and they're called lions, and hippopotamus, and things that we just destroy because we already know that they're there. It's like we all fantasize about these things that don't exist, like the Loch Ness Monster or the Sasquatch or whatever. I mean, people spend more time researching Sasquatch than they do actual endangered species. It's a commentary on being human. We love nature right up until it enters our house, and then we pull out the raid, and it's like, so I thought this was it was interesting in that it didn't end up with a real theology or philosophy or anything like that. It was just kind of it just kind of happened, and these people just responded in this really maybe human way, and we were kind of left with all of these questions. So maybe that's the good part of the book. I don't really know. I actually just finished it today, so I haven't really absorbed it all, but I really appreciated everyone's comments. And one thing I will say is that the scariest movie, or scariest, actually I read the book and the movie, Jaws is real, man. You're out in the middle of the ocean, you could get eaten alive by Jaws. Out in the woods, you could die of exposure or a number of things. You're probably not going to get, but you could be inside a shark. It's very reasonable.
Incorrect. I'm a marine science major, and I'm here to tell you, you are far more likely to be struck by lightning anywhere you're standing than be eaten by a shark.
Is fake news. I can tell you right now. Who gave the
part of our
moderator?
ecosystem.
No way. Jaws can eat you alive. Chomp.
Okay,
chomp.
we lost Evelyn. Evelyn, I hope she didn't get eaten by a mountain lion. Her hand had been up for a long time. Evelyn, are you still with us?
Hi guys. Yeah, I just okay. I did want to point out like a little bit about Kate's evolution or devolution. I'm not really sure. There was
titular line. You said it. Ding ding ding
Yeah,
ding ding. All right, Evelyn wins. First person to use the title of the book in her comments
Who was
tonight.
the devolution about? The humans.
I'm not really sure. Yeah, probably. I think so. but maybe they were already at devolution, right? The humans were in that group, and they had devolved, or we as humans are devolving because we're losing abilities. I think that's part of his thesis, right? Abilities to survive, which isn't that what evolution is? Survival of the fittest, and like we're losing that ability. So maybe that's something. But like, yeah, so Kate changes, right? Like I was talking to my roommate a little bit about this book, and it's interesting. She starts off like very uptight, talking to her therapist, you, very second person. We've been reading a lot of second person in this book club. And then it changes where she starts making, like she talks about making the spear, and then she inserts a few dick jokes in there, which like she really wasn't doing before. And yeah, she like slowly like loses I guess her what am I trying to say? Like her boundaries of like politeness, and then becomes more animal, I think, as time goes on. So I thought it was interesting how Max Brooks like wrote it like that too in her diary. Even though I agree with Courtney in the chat that who writes like dialogue word by word.
It's a great point. It's a great point. I did think also, I thought, how do you remember like entire super long conversations like from earlier in the, what I mean? It was like, unless you were recording it, there was some really long detailed sections. And back to Ruth's point also that she made that, yeah, I feel like that was a little bit of taking some liberty with the, okay, this is the style this is written in, but imagine if it's, we have to accept that Kate is just an incredibly detailed journalist who like writes down what all these different people said, and it wasn't just about like how she felt about things and how it affected her, but it was really like taking dictation of like almost like a secretary, or just like taking the notes of the meeting sort of thing. There was a lot of that. We got some hands up still. Kara had her hand up for a while.
Real quick, if you guys read like the epilogue or the thank you part, the acknowledgements part, he did mention that he had bought the rights back to write it, because he originally, it sounds like, sold it as a movie. So Andrew, you might get your wish.
Yeah, he did. He bought it back from, he sold it off as a movie first, and then he wanted to really dive into it more as a book. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you saw World War Z, it's very different than his book version of it. It's I'm not saying it's bad. It's a totally different thing though. So I don't know. I mean, I could see, I can't think, can anyone think of a good Bigfoot movie or a good Sasquatch movie? I don't think there exists a good one. I think they're all like super bad B-movie cheesy ones. There was like an art house film called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Also Bigfoot with Sam Elliott, where Bigfoot's like a really small part of it. This is like a guy who he kills Hitler, and then later they hire him to kill Bigfoot because Bigfoot has a disease like that he's going to spread, kind of like COVID, and they need to take him out. So he assassinates Bigfoot also. It's not a bad movie, but it's not really about Bigfoot. Bigfoot's like a 10-minute, 15-minute segment. It's just funny that it's in the title, Hitler and Bigfoot in the title. But I can't think of a good Bigfoot movie. There's only been like MST3K kind of level Bigfoot movies that I know of. After
Carolyn
reading
made a
this,
good point in the chat that the best Bigfoot movie ever made was the Dean Phillips commercial of Bigfoot looking for Eric Paulson. For those that I'll put a link in the chat. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, yeah, put the link in the chat. All right.
I just put it.
Okay, thank you. Kara, is your hand still up? Are you still with us? You're so patient.
Hey, I just kind of wanted to go back because like I think like talking about like, is it fair to expect folks to be like more prepared or not, and like comparing it to like you know, if you are living in the cities, to like how much you might be prepared for things versus like living in the country. I think like that's for me where it becomes unacceptable. Like I think immediately, you know, they don't necessarily show some of their worst behavior right away, but I was not on their side immediately because it's these people who want all of the convenience and luxury of city living, but like they're superior because they're going to live like in this green way, like no waste, but like they're taking up a bunch of land and it's like 10 people total. Like this is not like sustainable. This is not realistic, but they're like moralizing themselves and thinking that they're so much better because they're going to live out in nature, but like they're not actually willing to like do any work. And I think that's like the arrogance of it that for me made me really dislike pretty much all of them, except for Most Star and the child, because it wasn't the child's fault. I think like, I don't know. I mean, I've been reading a lot lately about like the housing crisis and stuff like that. So this is like a whole other thing, but just, you know, there's like a particular kind of person, usually upper class, that thinks that they can be green, they can live, you know, have a lot of space, they don't have to live with like a lot of people or high population density, and like that's the way to be, and that's just not realistic. We have 7 billion and growing people in this world. Like we need to live together, we need to be a community. And so I was just very unsympathetic. And also like to that point, like I'm not prepared for like a month's worth of food, but do I have like a bunch of dried beans and rice in my fridge? Like, could I probably survive on rationing for a month if I couldn't get any more food starting today? I think like, yes, maybe not healthy, but like I'm in the city and I still am more prepared than these people for a disaster. And I wouldn't consider myself like a prepper. And so I don't know, I just like was immediately not on their side. And just the idea of like these wealthy people like going onto like this like unspoiled land and thinking that they have a right to it. I just like, I don't know. I'm sure that was part of the point Max Brooks was making, but I also just think it's not necessarily a fair, it's a critique not on society, but on a specific group of people in society, because like there are a lot of people who are prepared to live out there like that, who are living like that. So I don't know.
Thanks, Kara. I see Andrew's hand is up, and I want to make sure anyone else that hasn't had a chance to speak yet, either put it in the chat, and Lisa, if you tell me if you see it, otherwise please raise your hand. Andrew, talk to us.
I think King Kong is the ultimate Sasquatch movie. I mean, he's an ape. And I was really surprised this didn't go the direction of King Kong, where one of the beasts actually fell in love with or started protecting the Katie character. I thought that's where it was going, where the brother said, you know, I hope she's still out there. But it went a whole different direction. Like, you know, I thought maybe she would join the loving Oma, you know, King Kong type of, you know, their thing. But I got all of that wrong. Like I started the first half of the book, I thought I was like, whoa, this is really going exactly the direction I would expect it to. And it went totally different direction than I expected based on my, but I think King Kong is your best Sasquatch movie out there.
Okay, well, kudos, I think, then to Brooks for subverting expectations. And when I talk about that he actually went there, like it goes there, I think that's, you're hitting on a bit what I'm feeling there too, Andrew, is like, I was like, oh, wow, like this, okay, we're doing this. Like, because I think so much of what we read, especially in this like literary fiction, you know, sort of, you know, book club, it's a trade paperback, it's a little more highbrow, but like, no, we read something where, yeah, it was man versus beast, and beast, you know, tore some men apart and then threw the heads back at, I mean, it was nuts. It was crazy. We don't read a lot of things like this. I mean, we've had some horror, but not a lot in our past. And to really have like that kind of graphic gore when it's not like, you know, a wartime novel or something. I mean, this was a war, you know, it was a small scale war of man versus beast. But so happy to see Amy's hand is up though. Amy Dunker.
Hello, it's been so long.
Yes, welcome.
I am House of Pfizer, and I get my second shot this Friday. And I just want to thank everyone for getting their vaccines in time for me to be able to have a birthday party in June. I am turning 50, so thank you everyone and the world for getting vaccinated so that I always kept saying, I feel so bad for all these marriages and all these things that are happening during COVID and they can't have parties. And what am I going to do if, I turn 50 and I can't have a party? Well, thank you for everyone for hearing me and getting vaccinated so that I can have a big party. So thank you. Also, I believe that there are parts of the world that we have never seen. And just like I believe there are parts of the ocean that we have never seen. And so I do believe there could be large, hairy creatures out there that we have never seen. So I guess you could say maybe I believe that a Sasquatchian type creature could exist. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is I am a gardener. And I love my garden. And can I just tell you, I was so excited when the little shoots started coming up. And, I don't know that the little fidget beans would grow, probably, but I don't know. But when that creature pooped on the garden, I was so disappointed. And I just thought, oh, he just, it did bring back thoughts of The Martian and, when they were talking about, using their own waste. And I was going back to The Martian and he was like, I can only use my own waste and I can't use other people's waste, but yet they were using other people's waste. I was like, I'm spending way too much time thinking about people's waste and growing a garden. And then they pooped on the garden and it was just like, okay, I got to think about other things here. So that's all I wanted to end this conversation with. Thank you.
I like it, Amy. It's a circle of life. You brought it really around. It's just beautiful, and I gotta say, I love how much The Martian has come up in this conversation because we are reading Andy Weir's new book, Project Hail Mary, in July. It comes out early May, and we'll discuss that in July on Zoom and at Local Roots. And I will say, not in the same way as this book, but I had a similar reaction to Andy Weir's book, new one, saying he goes farther than he does in The Martian. And I might be going on a limb, and I haven't seen any other reviews yet, but I think it's better than The Martian, this new book by Andy Weir. So I think it goes farther, and it goes to that level that it shocks and surprises. And I think it's really exciting. So try not to read too much about it before you read it. Get it in May and read it and join us in July. If you like The Martian, you're gonna like Project Hail Mary.
Did you
and
get
if
a
you
reader's copy?
I did, and I asked around it quite a bit. It took me a while, but a few months ago I got one. So yeah, in fact, it's right here. It's hanging out. Yeah, so there it is. But yeah, it's quite good. So yeah, and I told him, I said, I gotta preview this to make sure that we can do it for this summer, and we can. It's great. So it's our only hardcover. The other ones are in paperback, but I want to wrap it up. We're getting time here, but did anyone? I see there's something in the chat about we're voting. Are we voting on something? Lori, you're asking for a vote. What are we voting on? If we believe in Bigfoot or not? Is that?
Yes.
Are we coming back to the original? All right. So okay, how are we going to do this? Some people don't know how to raise their hands. Should we just? I don't have a visual on everybody though. So are we deciding if by the end of this conversation, do you believe that maybe there is possibility that some version of a Sasquatch did or does exist in this world? It's pretty open. It's pretty open there. So raise your hand if you're willing, if you believe. Raise your hand. Okay, I see. How many? Help me count.